know where to go.
I call this Maiden School District 5 Board of Trustees to order. Please stand for the pledge. Scott, will you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Let's see. Micah, do we have any trustees online? Is Amy with us online, or?
Do not see Amy.
Rebecca was planning on it.
Okay, okay. Well, we'll see.
I'll keep track.
We'll keep track as it comes. Trustees, have you had time to review the minutes? I'd entertain a motion to approve.
I so move.
Second.
Thank you, Will. Further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Public comment. This is the time for folks to address the trustees on matters that are not on our agenda, but within our jurisdiction. Is there anyone here that wishes to address trustees? Thank you. Can you state your name, and do we have a microphone?
Yep, it's over at the podium.
Okay.
Hi, DC Haas, I am on the agenda. I don't know if that breaks any rules or not. I'm been a bus driver for School District 5 since October 2016. And on your agenda tonight is a request for a leave of absence. Was asked to return to Kalispell Fire to help them out with some logistical needs. And I know it's an odd request, and came tonight to see if you had any questions concerning that. And could see you guys going either way very comfortably. No, one moment, please.
Okay. So it's a little bit out of order, but I think in this matter.
It's an odd request, and again, here to answer any questions you may have. I would expect leave of absence to take it through the end of the academic year, which would be, the first week of June. But intend to keep communications open with Annie and transportation.
And we'll discuss it more. We discussed that personnel, and it's on our agenda. So.
Okay. Very good.
But if there's any immediate questions, I don't know if you have to be going, Mr.
No.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to address the trustees? All right. Thank you. And no one online. Recognition student reports. Is Kaylee Hampton here? Come on up, Kaylee. Okay. And Amy Waller's online now. Perfect.
Hello, my name is Kaylee Hampton, and I'm an 8th grader for KMS. Recently at my school, we've had the boys basketball, which has wrapped up a successful season. Unfortunately, due to COVID, the 8th grade Trinity tournament was canceled, so both 7th and 8th graders are competing in our own end of the year KMS basketball tournament. Girls basketball starts up this week as of yesterday for 7th and 8th grade girls. We have usually 5 or 6 teams for each grade level. And once again, we had a very successful food drive during the week of December the 7th. Over 3,811 food items were collected. 73 turkeys, 24 hams, and 50 bags of potatoes were collected. I was actually there during the home base, and the entire table were covered. 20 needy KMS families were assisted, and that was delivered by our staff. And the rest of the food went to Lions Food Drive. This food drive is one of the many community service projects that our students have the ability to participate in during the school year, during their home base period. The 15th annual KMS Talent Show has been canceled this year due to COVID concerns, but we are planning on having our all-school KMS musical. We have pushed back the start date until spring, and we'll have auditions the week before spring break. We'll be performing Annie Jr. Just before Christmas break, we had our holiday concerts, which were well received and with a limited spectators, 2 per participant. and it was our first concert for our sixth grade band and orchestra groups. Thank you for allowing me to share what's happening at KMS, and I hope you come and visit our school anytime.
Yeah. Are there any questions about KMS?
Great job on the food drive. It's unbelievable how much food that they get, for the community. It's incredible. Pretty cool tradition.
Yeah.
I have a question. Are other winter sports or activities get pushed back, do you know?
I'm not sure, actually. I don't normally participate in any sports.
Okay, so just the musical they're gonna wait on for a little while.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kaylee.
Well, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Let's see. Gabe, do you want to go right now, or do you want to get a breath first?
No, I can go right now.
All right.
Doesn't matter to me.
So Mr. Gabe Adams from Flathead High School, give us an update of what's going on.
All right, how are we doing?
We're doing well.
Good, awesome. All right, so kind of winter season. The first thing I want to talk about was we've been doing a lot of charity stuff lately, a lot of community service oriented projects. The first one I want to talk about is the food drive. That was really big. Our costume was like the third or fourth in line. That was really big at our school this year. We got more than 4,000 items of food. So successful this year, really great. Also the angel tree, we set that up. We got a lot of momentum going for that. A lot of kids gave. It was great. We had 200 gifts given, and when I say a gift for a lot of those, for the specific like Flathead ones where we give them a Flathead students, that's not just one item. That's like a whole package of like a coat, some gloves, some pants, something cool. Like a pair of earbuds or something like that. And so we saved the Barbie dolls for the angel tree. And anyways, and then the Motivation Foundation, you're getting hot chocolate if you get is it an A? I wasn't with that group.
Anybody at lunch.
No, well, anybody at lunch is getting hot chocolate, just like Fred and Cherry, making like the winter season more fun. Yeah. Any questions about those service projects, community things? Okay, sweet. And then the winter activities. So it's pretty different with COVID. We are, and especially like the indoor ones is basketball. I know that was kind of on the borderline. So thank you guys for letting us do those and keep pushing that forward. And we wear masks all the way on the bus. Our coaches are really big on over the nose, all those things, all those safety protocols. We're walking in social distancing like before the game. The only time that we're not social distancing without masks is on like right before the game and during the game. And so it looks like a lot different, but it's really cool that we get to still play sports and still get to do all those things. And the end of semester, finals is coming up. No, thanks. I don't know. Finals is coming up. That was right on my sheet of paper, I think to say. We have finals coming up. There you go. Finals is mandatory this year, so there's a lot of kids who are taking finals for the first time. Some kids are freaking out. I don't think that's a bad thing, because you have to take them in college anyways. Another thing I want to talk about, again, the extra. Have you guys already voted on that Wednesday early outs?
No.
Okay, well, I just want to say that's a really helpful thing for a lot of teachers. I know, like, my history teacher talks about, like, every day, like, that comes up because people are like, every day it's like a Wednesday we talk about, inevitably talk about the policy. She's like, it's been super helpful. Like, I know that I use that time every single time to do extra work and take care of things. And there's other teachers that do that. And it's also a space and time for kids who have to take the bus home or have a weird schedule, that then they can come in after school and get help with, their assignments and things like that. So, a kid like me who's in sports and they're done right after school, they don't want to miss practice. Well, I can come in and talk to Mr. Teal about a math day I missed, or, talk to someone like that. Anyways, that's it. Any questions?
How's the basketball team look?
It looks good. And our coach, Johns, is really great. He holds us accountable for everything. And we've got, we've got good players that really want to be there and play. And we've got talent on the team this year, and like dedicated basketball players. It's really cool, really fun.
Was there a good turnout for tryouts?
Yeah, we had a really good. We had I think it was one of the biggest turnouts I've seen like over my 4 years. A lot of kids tried out, and it was a competitive one this year because just for those JV positions, there was like, I mean, let me think. You probably have about 12 kids who end up being like JV team, and there was probably 20 to 22 or 23 kids who could have made it. And so it was a fun competitive tryout. So, yes.
2 questions have to do with the mask. One is, how have you handled mask wearing? And then what kind of reactions have you been getting, or what kind of encounters have you had with those that are not wearing masks?
Yeah. So me personally, or just seeing like what's happening around the school?
You personally.
If I want to give my personal opinion on the masks, I think the science behind it is kind of shaky. I understand the water droplet things and all that stuff. I think a lot of kids are getting quarantined anyways. A lot of kids are getting sick anyways. I see kids like wearing the mask. I wear the mask as a respect thing. When I see kids, I don't know, when I see other kids correct other kids on the mask thing, it becomes a little bit of like a weird power play for kids, and it can cause some tension. So I think it's best around the mask. Teachers are perfectly capable of like keeping the mask on kids' faces. So I think it's best when it's just in the teacher's hands and it gets handled there. You know, as a student body, I think there's kids who are on board with the masks and kids who aren't on board with the masks. And I think 95% of people understand whether you agree with it or not. It's what we have to do right now to be in school. And so most kids are wearing it. You see kids like, you know, looking for like every opportunity to take their mask off, but I mean, it hasn't been that bad. It's like you just put the mask on while you're in school or while you're not eating. Yeah. Anyways, any more questions? Greg? Yes?
Quick question for you. So is there anything you would change from a facility standpoint on, you know, for sanitizing, anything like that? Is there anything that you ran across that's like a roadblock for you that you, as a student, you just go, I wish I had X, Y, and Z?
Yeah. I think when you look at the studies on COVID, it's, you know, the vast majority, it's really rarely transmitted through contact, and COVID can't survive that long on most surfaces that we're working on. And it's really you know, and it's why I'm, you know, however much I disagree with the mask, it's why I'm wearing it, because I understand that when COVID is transmitting, it's transmitting through the air. And so I think there's a lot of like almost over sanitizing that happens because, you know, or like, you know, over sanitizing or just being like cautious and like it's not. I just don't think we need like more sanitizing, because also it like breaks down new equipment. Like when you sanitize something, like certain plastics and certain materials and surfaces, when you sanitize it every single day, well, those like that's like a chemical that is breaking down things and removing it. There's chemical processes happening, so over time, it's like, you know, like you have like a new item or a new thing that was just built in the school, and then it's kind of getting like trashed a little bit, but.
So do you find like with the masks, they're readily available, you're good with them?
Oh yeah, the masks have been like, I forget a mask like, it's pretty often I forget a mask at school. I'll just walk into my, you know, I'll leave in my car or something like that, and then I'm about to walk in class, oh crap, like I forgot my, and then any teacher I ask, and they always have a mask. So.
That's across the board?
Yeah, across the board, it's been really easily accessible. Yeah, the Flathead has done such a great job of like equipping us with all the materials, all the cleaning supplies. I've never seen anything like short on cleaning supplies. We have all the like little gizmo Ghostbuster things that they spray stuff down with. We're really cautious. In between games, they're spraying down all the seats. Like everything you can think of, like things I didn't even think of, like, oh, COVID could be transmitted that way. Like Flathead's really on top of it. Yeah. Anyways, yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Gabe. All right. And one more student presenter from Glacier High School, Morgan Hernandez.
I have Mr. Hours joining me today too.
Aha.
everybody.
Good evening.
All right, so, last meeting I kind of touched on, holiday giving, and we finally wrapped that up, which I say finally. It was a great time, but I mean, it is a little bit stressful. There's a lot to do around the holidays. So we ended up improving a lot from last year with the food drive, and then we also did 300 tags on the giving tree this year, and we filled every one of them. I know that for sure because I took the last one. And then we also adopted 2 families, and those were Glacier families, and from the help of our counselors, we were able to not get a hold of those families. It was completely anonymous, but they knew who they were, and they were able to get it delivered, which was awesome. And then we also were able to, I was able to deliver 40 pairs of socks with handwritten notes from all of our student council members. And that's my favorite thing to do around the holiday season, even though this year I could, me and a few of student council members would always go in and hand deliver them and be able to listen to the stories that the vets had for us. But this year I just had to drop them off at the door, which was kind of sad, but I mean, at the same time, we're still doing something great for them. Yeah, that's pretty much all we did for holiday giving. It was kind of hard this year. We couldn't do bell ringing or anything like that, which is also something pretty fun for student council members to do. But winter sports did just start up, which included swim, which we did a virtual in-person hybrid kind of thing. I'm not sure if anybody was familiar with how they did that or not, but they some schools weren't able to come, so they sent in their times virtually, which was awesome. That they're still being able to have a season, because I know that most schools around the country aren't able to have any season at all. And then basketball, so our girls basketball team and our boys basketball team actually played Big Sky and Sentinel. Unfortunately, our boys fell to both, but they put up a really great fight, and our girls beat Big Sky and unfortunately also fell to Sentinel. But they had some really great games and some really good stats, which is awesome to hear. And then also our wrestling season just started up, which is going great, by the way. Our girls are phenomenal, which is awesome because we have around 20 girls, right? That's how many we have this year, and coming from 1 or 2 last year? Not even, yeah. So also, yeah. So Flathead and Glacier's girls wrestlers make up half of our conference, which. Half of the state, yeah. Which is huge, because that's coming from nothing. That's a really big accomplishment for Glacier and Flathead. Yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say. Oh, January 23rd, there's some girls wrestling matches too. And that will be here and at Glacier, right? Just confirm.
The Jamboree at both places.
Yeah.
That they're having.
And then Mr.
So I recommend you guys, come watch that. Mr. Denny just wanted us to elaborate on the girls wrestling. If you haven't seen it, it was pretty electric, the last one. That pretty much whooped us up the first time. The first one we had, but last weekend it was a barn burner. It was back and forth and pretty much, really close all the way to the end. And so, but if you haven't been to one, I mean, it's pretty awesome, and it's really good for the sport, not just for the guys, but just giving the opportunity for the girls. We didn't realize how much just opening that door would really influence them, and how many were just waiting for an opportunity. And so that's just with anything. Sometimes you just gotta open the door and give the students, individuals an opportunity, and boy, it just opened the floodgates, and you go up and watch practices, and the girls are just having fun, and they're working really hard. They're just loving it, and we just never thought that we'd have this kind of turnout just by giving them that opportunity. I thought, we maybe have 5 or 10. Me being a former wrestling coach, I figured there would be a few, but they realized how excited, and they just they didn't want to have to wrestle boys. They wanted to be able to just compete against each other. And it's just really opened up a whole new opportunity, and not just for the sport of wrestling, but for activities and keeping students involved within the school too. And so that's 20, 25 more girls that are involved in something that wouldn't be doing anything right now in the school. And I think it's just going to continue to grow, because I was standing next to Michelle at the last one, and some girls walked by like, oh man, I wish I was doing that. And they were basketball players, It was so electric, and just like, man, the energy behind it was just really exciting. So we have a little bit of highlight of the action from that night that was spent over. So. one of the matches, I think the best match of the night, and probably the first official match that actually went 3 periods in the state of Montana for girls wrestling, is usually kind of a joke because they usually last like 30 seconds. So, and that's not exaggeration, but it went 3 periods and it was back and forth, and it actually went into sudden death. And so it was tied 10-10 at the end of the 3 periods. And so, and that was the last match, so it was really good. It was awesome, and ended up finishing. It was really highlight of the night. Yeah.
Well, is that open to the public, or do you have to have tickets to come in?
Yeah, but I think we could pull some strings to see us later. You guys are the board members, I think you'd be able to pull some strings. You all know Bill.
He's got the ticket. So I know with girls wrestling, which is great, there was also boys sport added, correct, with Title IX? Wasn't there powerlifting?
Yeah, but I don't know if there's really many schools that are participating
Okay.
in it, just because, the interest, there's not a lot of interest in it, but like you said, because of Title IX, they added that. So I don't even know if there's any competitions or if there's even been any movement with that part of it,
Okay.
so. But
I was just gonna say, there's a small group of boys at our school that do it, but I think that they mostly work out and like do their practices, I guess you would say, at, Donnie Tudall. I'm not sure if you guys all know who that is. His Beast Athletics down
Okay.
kind of out towards Murdoch's. I think that that's where they mostly do most of their training.
Okay.
and I think that's kind of like a separate club thing.
Yeah, I think it is more of a club than
Right,
a,
it's not part of the
yeah.
school too
Mhm.
much. But yeah, just to answer your question, Lance, there hasn't been a lot of movement with that, but it's been really great for the girls' side of it and opening up that aspect of it. So,
Yeah.
it's really good thing. So,
Good.
Yeah, any other questions? Morgan?
Thanks for sharing those highlights.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, a building update, Mr. Brent Binkelman at Hedges Elementary, which we had a tour of today.
For those of you who don't know me, I'm Brent Benkelman, a few new faces, I think, on the board, but I think I've met most of you now, or at least got to introduce myself, and thank you for touring today. For those of you that said you couldn't make it, our door is open, so, if you missed today, but you want to come and tour another day, please just let me know, and I'd be happy to do another tour anytime, so feel free if you missed out, but there's things you want to see, or if you're new to the board and you haven't been in all the buildings, feel free. I think most of the principals will be willing to accommodate and work with you guys too. So, my presentation today, I am the only one here in person, but we have Amanda Lawler, who is our K2 life skills teacher, and Lacey Barr, who is our 3rd grade through 5th grade life skills teacher, will be in the presentation as well. They did some virtual stuff. Our original plan for this presentation was going to be doing a Screencastify lesson for you guys, and that's some of our software that the teachers used through our remote learning. And then we realized that if some of the slides they were trying to present and do, and then I'm here in person with a clicker, which I hope there's maybe a clicker, or no, that's okay if not, that it would be confusing to try to go through all that. So they just embedded some videos into the slides that they were presenting on, and we'll kind of go from there. So Hedges' mission is learning for all, no excuses and no limits. And our vision is to build positive and collaborative relationships while supporting all students to reach high levels of achievement and become lifelong learners. Today, our presentation is going to be about something that's a little bit unique to Hedges, and that is our life skills program. So we house the district life skills program at the elementary level at Hedges. So some of our students with some of the higher severe needs and disabilities come to Hedges no matter what their elementary school boundary is. So we have that program at our school, and like I said, we have a K2 classroom and a 3-5 classroom. There's a teacher in each of those classrooms and 4 paras supporting those teachers and all of those kids. And it's an amazing program for not only our students with disabilities that are there, but also the gen ed kids as well. Our regular ed kids get a lot out of that program. There's a lot of learning that happens at all of those levels. The support that our general education kids provide for those kiddos, the inclusion time that they get, the camaraderie,
the encouragement, the empathy. I mean, there's just so much that I think that our general education kids get just as much, if not more, out of it as our special needs kiddos. And so we really appreciate having that there. And so today the presentation is actually going to be about Special Olympics. This is our third year in Special Olympics at the elementary level for Kalispell School District 5. So I know some of the other partner schools have had teams, and other places have had teams. We've had a middle school team for quite a while and high school teams, but at the elementary level, we started a team 2 years ago. Like I said, we're in our third year. Unfortunately, with COVID, we only got to compete 1 year, and that was the first year. So we've done a lot of work and a lot of fundraising and a lot of things the past few years, and we're hoping to be able to compete this year and work through some of that.
You ready?
Yep.
Hi, my name is Amanda Lawler, and I teach kindergarten and second grade in Kalispell, your cousin. And I'm Lisa, and I teach third grade in Kalispell. We are going to talk a little. Hi, my name is Amanda Lawler, and I teach kindergarten and second grade in Kalispell, your cousin. And I'm
I'm muted.
I talk pretty loud.
Should I try it again, Jason?
Try to get them. Families deal with. Our teachers spend hours creating awesome presentations. Sometimes the families have a glitch on their end. So this is why we want to be in person as long as we can.
What
inclusive youth leadership.
They move forward. So this is kind of an overview of last year's Respect Week. As you can see, we kind of do the Spirit Week at Hedges, and each day had kind of a different theme to it. So Monday was United We Stand Together, United Day We Stand Together, and so all of the school wore whatever Hedges gear they had. And so they were dressed in yellow and green and hoodies and shirts and hats and everything that we had. And then the teachers all got this slide for the week. And basically, these are hyperlinks, so they clicked on a ready-to-go lesson on deaf and hearing impairment that they taught to their kids in the classroom. So the teachers, our special education teachers, created these lessons. They're ready to go. Wasn't a ton of work on our gen ed teachers other than, showing the video or doing the lesson already. And then they gave some other ideas for them that they could do if they wanted. Tuesday was Inside Out Day. So everybody wore their clothes inside out. We were trying to teach the kids that, you don't want to judge somebody based on their appearance. This was on the inside that counts. So we worked on and did lessons on physical disabilities that day and talked about what that means and what that looks like. Wednesday was Spread the Word Inclusion. So it was lighted up red for National Respect Day. And we worked on vision impairment and talked about that and brought more awareness to that. And then in our STEAM lab, we actually had a Braille writer, so classes could sign up to come in and see how that works and see different stories and make different things in there. Thursday was Dare to Be Different Day, so it's kind of a crazy hair day, and we talked about autism spectrum disorders and brought some awareness for those. And then Friday was We All Have Hands Making Peace, so it's tie-dye or 70. We talked about communication disorders, and then that's when we actually had our big assembly and kicked it all off and from there. So we're hoping to do something like that again this year. We haven't gotten there yet. Here's another video.
That is inclusive.
they're not eligible to compete, but our 3-5 kids are, so we kind of do the young student, program to kind of keep them included and get them prepped up for when they do get to 3rd to 5th grade and get to enjoy that experience. So here's some photos from our Special Olympics track and field day. And like they said, our team consisted of gen ed kids and students with special needs. And so they did different relay teams. I think this was the softball throw that they're doing out here, some individual races. You can see Miss Rand here is getting ready to start the race with the baton and pass it on. And so it's awesome when you're on the track that day and you see the camaraderie and you see those kids cheering each other on. You know, and I mean, honestly, on that day, it doesn't matter if you come in first or not, everybody, you know, gets the gold medal type thing, just for the experience. It's pretty amazing. I was gonna bring pizza and Gatorade that day, but McDonald's actually sponsored lunch for everybody that day, so, that was pretty awesome for the kids too, because which kids don't love McDonald's, right? So moving on here. This was our team last year, so this is Mrs. Waller without her mask. And she was presenting there. This is Mrs. Fitch, and she's actually a special education teacher up at Edgerton. And then this is Mrs. Maxwitz, and she's one of our paras. So the three of them would stay after school and work with the team. We actually had our maintenance and grounds crew get some spray paint out and paint a giant track in spray paint in our field at Hedges, and they participated and practiced the passing of batons and practiced their running events and stuff like that at Hedges after school each day. And so this team has gen ed kids and special needs kids from Edgerton and Hedges at this event. And so it's cool to see the two schools kind of come together as well. Inclusive youth leadership is kind of the hardest one in our eyes to do. And I think Mrs. Barr explained that a little bit in the video too. Have different, you know, sometimes they have occupational therapy, speech therapy, different things after school that it's challenging as well. But we're working on trying to get more of them on our youth leadership team. So we're still new, and one of the things that we're working through is our fundraising. The last 2 years, we've done the Polar Plunge, which happens every year for Special Olympics. That's the big event that happens up in Whitefish. And we raised over $1,500 from that last couple of years. Special Olympics Montana takes a good portion of some of those fundraising that money. So after our first year, we kind of lived and learned a little bit. We want to still raise that because it's for a good cause when you put a lot of time and effort into it. And then a lot of it goes to Special Olympics Montana, but then your team is new and you need lots of funding to start with. We realized that we can do some fundraising for them, but then have some of our own. We did a pajama day where kids could pay $1 and wear their pajamas for the whole day at school, and we raised $231. And that year we had 330 kids, I think, at the school, so not too bad. Duct tape the principal. I spent 90 minutes on our lunchroom wall. And we raised $445 for that event. And then last year we did Pie in the Face, and we raised $934 for that event. And we had staff and people participate in that, so it wasn't just me taking the burden of that. So here's some pictures from the Polar Plunge. The last 2 years I was not able to plunge, I was coaching basketball, but Sarah Cole's up here, Director of Special Services, Jen Stein from Edgerton, and then a couple of our teachers as well. And so that was last year's plunge. There's some pictures from that, obviously, so you can enjoy. This was the duct tape principal day. And so the kids, I think this was 2 years ago, I think the kids paid, they could either do like 3 strips or 5 strips for $3 or something like that, or they could do $1 a strip. And so we went through quite a few rolls of duct tape. I started on a step stool, and then once we got enough tape on, we pulled the stool out, and I was slowly sliding down the wall. But 90 minutes was a long time to be taped. So I'll probably do it again, but maybe for less time. But it was fun. The kids had a great time. Most of our class here was worried about how I was going to get down. They were worried that I was going to be left up there for quite a while. So I thought most of them would laugh about that, but I was happy happy to see that they were actually concerned for me. I didn't know which way that was gonna go. And then pie in the face last
Do you
year.
have a question, Hector? It's kind of dumb. How did you get down?
So we actually just did kind of a razor knife
Oh.
and went down the sides and, yeah. And then I actually wrapped in some saran wrap as well before I went in, so that helped with the slipperiness getting down. So pie in the face, we had a lot of teachers volunteer, and I was pretty proud of them for doing this. A lot of teachers volunteer to be pies, so the kids could pick to, and some of the people volunteered aren't even in this picture, but the kids could pick to pie their teacher, $3 to pie the teacher, or $5 to pie the principal. And, $934, whatever it was a lot. I think I took like 62 pies to the face. And then I was already so covered in pie that I had them go draw our good behavior tickets. So each teacher drew 2 good positive behavior tickets out of their jars, and 2 kids from each class got to come up and pie me as well. So all in all, in a day, I think I took over 80 pies to the face, and these teachers all took a lot of pies to the face as well. So it was a fun event, messy event, but the student body was, we were a little worried about how well the assembly was gonna go, if it was gonna get a little out of control, but they were actually very well mannered and handled it pretty well. So we were pretty excited. A little note before we go to questions. Polar Plunge has been canceled for this year, but it is going virtual. So I think Friday afternoon, we are doing our virtual polar slip and slide in the snow, although maybe the rain helped us there, on the front lawn of Hedges. So Friday afternoon, I think we're doing our Polar Plunge. We have to video it and then send it in virtually to show that we did it and then raise the money. So that's kind of how they're doing the virtual Polar Plunge this year. So we're gonna slip and slide. Morgan, if you have a question?
No, I just wanted to know how you got down to it.
Okay. Questions for us? Things you want to know more about?
I'd just like to throw in a comment. So I went on a tour today, and the kids, to a child, were happy to be there. It was calm, it was collect, they were engaged, and if you have any doubts about why our kids should be in school, visit an elementary school as soon as you can, because it's where our children need to be right now. So, thank you for creating that structure.
Thank you guys for supporting us too. Appreciate it. I really feel like we have everything we've needed to be successful in person this year, and I think our district's done a fabulous job of that. So kudos to all of you, and kudos to our admin team and leadership for helping us do that too.
Great program. I've been involved with Special Olympics for years and years, and it's amazing when you get working with those kids and get out and be able to be part of the events that they take part in. Is to see the smiles on their faces and to be able to do it down at the elementary level. It's awesome. So good job.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, thank you guys.
All right, Brent. Thank you, Brent. Old business, policy updates, second reading.
Yes, and we are trying to get our agenda back up on the screen. But policy update 1441 is in reference to audience participation. We've talked about this at the last couple of board meetings, and we included just some really minor changes in the language relative to running commentary online and how we wanted to address that. Getting feedback from Montana School Boards Association, they said you do not need to do that. There's a place and time for public comment on things not related to the agenda. And then there's also a place for public comment on items that are specifically on the agenda. And so if there's just this running commentary about something we've moved on from, it does not need to be included in the minutes. So, oh, you're back.
Oh, I can start reading again. Would you like the policy update open?
Sure. Yeah, we'll just pull it up real quick. And this is just second reading on this particular policy. And so the recommendation would be to move it to a third reading, and the changes are noted bold and underlined. Yeah, you can scroll down a little bit. Oh, it's not catching up. Oh,
It's just not following. Oh.
got a little delay. So it just basically, the board will permit public participation through oral written or online/remote comments submitted during the public comment section of the board agenda and prior to the final decision on a matter of significant interest to the public. Online running commentary will not be recognized by the chairperson or included in the minutes.
Questions or thoughts? We will see this, oh, Ursula.
Last time when we read it, and I don't know what things officially got changed from last time, but I was, I had some concerns about the way it read. When I read through this one again, I just wanted to say, I really appreciate it. I feel like it's very clear that we aren't trying to, like, take away people's ability to give feedback, that there's just, like, specific protocol for it, and I think this reads really nicely. So thanks for speaking it a little bit.
Jack?
I'm looking at the two words final decision, and I'm wondering if board deliberation on it would be more of a point in time for final public comment, because you have board deliberation and then you have the vote of the board, and that we do not typically take any kind of public input when we're deliberating. So I'm just going to throw that out to see if different words should be in there instead of final decision there.
So, and prior to board deliberations on a matter of significant interest?
Right, somehow put it
Which
different.
would actually be,
different,
Robert.
defining point in time. Like, prior to, beginning of board deliberation.
But don't we actually stop right after the public comment section? I mean, are the public able to present when we're deliberating on something?
They're able to add comments, yeah.
Not while we're deliberating, no.
But
Public comment is ended.
So usually when we make the motion, that's kind of when public comment should be done. And this is just for significant things. I mean, probably won't have public comment tonight on this. But there will be occasions that people want to weigh in.
Okay, so like when you say, is there any further comment, that's for us, but also potentially that would be for public comment?
That would just be for us.
That's just for us?
Yep.
So
It's before we make a motion and second that.
Well, so technically the way the process goes, and we're not required to follow Robert's Rules of Order, but there's typically no discussion on something until a motion's been made and seconded, theoretically. And then you can have then you open it up to public comment, and then you close public comment, then we start our deliberations, and the chair will say something like, is there any final comments for the board before we call for a vote? And then you call for a vote. So the deliberations, once we start deliberations, public comment isn't there. Now, if there's somebody that has an expert aspect of the topic, and we're asking for clarification on something, that's not public comment. That's not related to that at all. So it really comes down to at what point. Now, we can discuss things early on, we can get public comment early on, and then make a motion, because we're not required to follow Robert's Rules of Order or be strict with it. So we may do one of those, but still the mechanics are public comment, and since we're asking for online, we may want to say, just have a practice, not a policy, let's wait for 30 seconds, or even 60 seconds to see if anybody's going to submit anything online, because it takes a little bit to type things in. And then once that 30 seconds or 60 seconds is up, then we close public comment. We either start deliberations or entertain a motion, and then deliberations, and then a vote. So I'm just looking at prior to final decision, that needs to get better defined then as to when the public comment will end.
Okay. Good point, Jack. Thank you.
So is it the will of the board to change that language from final decision to board deliberations?
Yes. That'd be appropriate.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Did you get that back?
Yeah, do you want us to say prior to the beginning of board deliberations? Jack says yes.
Or you could say prior to the chair's call for board deliberations. I hope you remember that. I'm just looking at somebody out there wanting to make an issue of it.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, the intent is not to stifle any public comment. We welcome that, and,
This is Rebecca Linden. I'm great with Jack's change to before board deliberation, but I did want to point out that it is nice if we have a format for email submissions before the meeting. It is, you know, some of us are not fast typists, so it's nice to be able to submit a thing for the board public comments section prior to the meeting.
Yes, that can be done.
yes, you can't see you nodding.
That's why I said yes, that can be done. Those can always be sent to trustees at their emails. Or they can be distributed here as well.
Yep.
So, okay. Anything else about this policy update? We will see it a third time. Okay. New business. Policy updates? One reading for policy 1910, personnel use of leave.
So to back up the bus just a little bit, generally speaking, the board. For an introduction? Yes. Generally speaking, the board has had a practice of putting policies through 3 readings. Most of them kind of go through and are relatively, you know, we might get updates from MTSBA and we go through those. But we did adopt a policy, 1901, that allows us to adopt a policy in 1 reading, and this is one of those policies that we're looking to adopt in 1 reading, and this is for the FFCRA expired, which was the leave that was granted to employees due to COVID-related illness, quarantine, having to care for others. And that expired on December 31st. And we have talked about it from an administrative perspective. We also brought this to personnel and policy. And we, you know, sought some input from Montana School Boards Association, asked around the valley of what other districts were doing and our AA districts across the state. As it relates to COVID-related leave, and we have put together a policy. And so, and what you're going to see on the screen is the original draft, which was basically of 1910, which was basically verbatim taken from FFCRA federal law, and have modified it to, we'll say, continue to support our staff in the event that there is a quarantine and or an isolation, which would mean you've had a positive COVID case. Part of the rationale for doing this is, you know, our employees do have sick leave, and we recognize that, but also relative to any other type of illness that you may have, it's not actually legally required for you to quarantine and or stay home if you're sick. And this would be an exception to that. And so we have modified it to reflect that in the absence of FFCRA, the district can implement an emergency leave policy, and that we are calling it intermittent emergency paid COVID leave. So if someone's required to quarantine or isolate, they would be able to use this leave instead of their own sick leave bank to do that. Some things have changed since this first came out in FFCRA. One of the changes is the length of quarantine. It used to be 14 days, and it was shortened to 10, and with a negative test, it can be shortened to 7. And so, and our district has access to rapid antigen testing, and, you know, through our Care Here clinic, free of cost. So we're looking at, basically, if someone has to quarantine, we're gonna give them up to 7 days, of leave, if they're required to quarantine as a result of a close contact, or 10 days if they were in isolation, which means that they were a positive test for COVID. The second part of this is, the FFCRA had an emergency family medical leave component to it. So not only did you get the 2 weeks originally that was in that original language, but you could also qualify for up to 10 more weeks if you had to care for someone else. And we tightened this up a little bit to reflect, and it's, so we're saying one-time benefit, 2 weeks, up to 2/3 pay, and we changed it to care for a family member, which is, family member is defined under the FMLA law, so it can't just be for anybody. It actually has to be a close family member. And we changed it from 18 years of age to 14 years. You know, so the old one was pretty broad, but also recognizing that there may be someone who has a child that is over the age of 14 years old, who has a disability perhaps, and they would need to care for that person. And so we'll always make the accommodation and the exception using ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act. So really looking at this as kind of a hold harmless for our employees.
And I believe this was extensively reviewed at personnel. I think there was 8 trustees there. So I think most of us have seen this. Any questions for Micah or Tracy, I see? Jack?
Just a procedural one. Even though we're looking at approving 1910 on first and only reading, I think we need to make sure we reference 1901 in the motion that authorizes this right here. It's not anywhere in that, but I just want to make sure we, in the motion is 1901 authorizing the one and only review.
Good point. So the suggested motion would be to approve policy 1910 as presented under policy 1901.
Will?
So there was a pre-existing policy, and some of our folks took advantage of that when they were on quarantine. Now we're going to implement this policy. Does that allow some of those folks to then have another 2 weeks pay?
Mm-hmm. Well, 7 days for an or for a quarantine, so it wouldn't be 2 weeks, but.
So it's like starting new.
Yes.
New year, new policy.
Yep.
Any other questions?
I do want to clarify that it does not start over for those folks that are under a serious health condition and have not been able to work all year. So they got the original benefit. This is mostly focused on those people that are going to be required to intermittent leave, intermittent quarantine due to exposure to, COVID.
And I think at the heart of it, it's just a great support for keeping our staff motivated, keeping them involved, keeping them part of our organization. Brent?
I actually had a question. What if the staff member, I guess this is the question I would probably get first as the principal, would this carry forward if the staff member is able to work remotely like we've done in the past?
Again, when they work remotely, then no leave is taken at all. So it's just like they're working, they're just in a different physical state. So that doesn't change.
Jack, we have to make 2 motions. The first one is waiving our policy of 3 readings under 1901, and that has to be approved. And the second motion is approving policy 1910, and that the waiver is specific for the action taken on 1910. Those 2 motions.
Jack, would you care to make that first motion?
I'm entertaining, I'll make the motion to waive our policy of having 3 readings and voting on the 3rd reading, to just have 1 reading for the review and action on proposed policy 1910.
Okay.
Will seconds. Further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Amy, how do you vote?
Aye.
Rebecca?
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay.
I move to approve policy 1910 as presented.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Sue seconds that. Further discussion? Amy, how do you vote?
Aye.
Rebecca?
Aye.
Fellow trustees, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Human Resources and Personnel. Personnel action items? Any questions for Tracy? Will?
I don't know. It just seemed to me that, there were quite a few resignations, but I haven't really been checking every month, you know? Were there actually a larger number? It was like 16 people or something.
No. And some of those resignations, they notified us early, but some of those resignations, as you can see, are in June as well.
Oh.
But no, that's
That's the usual amount.
fairly normal. Yes, it is.
Entertain a motion to approve?
I so move.
Thank you, Sue.
I second.
Kim seconds it. Further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
We got Amy and Rebecca.
Oh, Amy, I'm sorry. How do you vote?
Aye.
Rebecca?
Aye.
There we go. Thank you, Will. Motion does carry unanimously. Request for leave of absence.
Yes, I feel so formal. Is there a gavel?
No.
First of all, I want to thank you guys for supporting us on 1910. That means so much to everyone. So thank you for doing that. DC Haas has requested, I know he mentioned that earlier, to have an unpaid leave of absence. We are anticipating that to go through the end of the school year. This is supported by his supervisor, and I'm not saying this just because you're here, but he is a fantastic employee and does a great job for the district. And so we want to support him in every way we can. And he just thinks you're an amazing employee. So I would have said that whether you're here or not. And so it is supported by her supervisor and the administration team to support his leave of absence.
Any questions?
Yes.
Will he be replaced by someone? How does that work?
It will be a temporary driver that she has already identified.
Entertain a motion to approve this 6-month unpaid leave of absence.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Ursula.
I'll second it.
Sue will second it. Further discussion? Mr. Haas, we look forward to having you back.
Thanks.
And thanks for serving the city of Kalispell.
Hey, thank you, appreciate it.
Okay.
Be careful out there. We're still doing fire inspection.
He actually did tell me in confidence that it's more dangerous to drive the egg bus than it is to go on a fire. So I'm a little concerned.
Yeah.
We might need not maybe a COVID director, but maybe an egg ed director a little bit on the bus driver thing. But yeah, so anyway, thank you for all you do.
I don't think we voted on it yet.
We have not.
Oh, we haven't?
All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Amy?
Aye.
Rebecca?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Yeah.
All right. And Tracy, you're up next on the superintendent evaluation.
Yes. So a colorful PowerPoint presentation again. I'm all excited with these nice colors. But we wanted to give you an update on the updated tool and timeline for this year's evaluation. So if you go to the first one, so the evaluation we have converted to a Google survey for those of you that have done this in the past. And I guess, can I get a show of hands who's done a superintendent evaluation before in this process? Okay, well, that's not bad, a couple. In the past, we've used SurveyMonkey, and it has been a very difficult process in order to kind of collate the information. You guys would get 150 pages, and it was really difficult. The Google survey should be a lot better and more streamlined. And it'll be a lot easier to complete. As you can tell, this is how the document is going to look. And so you can just scroll down and you can see the standard, then you'll see the rating, and then you'll be able to provide additional comments. And so you can go up and down throughout the document. You don't have to go to different pages. And then when you're done, you're just going to complete survey, and that will be sent to me. So it should be a very easy process, except for when you do that.
a live survey.
Yeah.
Watch your.
I do appreciate Callie doing that, though. So you see where Callie can't go any further, it's giving her an error because that is a required answer. So we are asking you to provide comments, and you will have to do a rating as well. So whenever you see an asterisk, that means that that's a required question. I can't talk tonight. Yes.
With the survey document isn't saved, with this, can you go back to it? Or do you do it all in one sitting?
What was the question?
If you can go back to it.
Yeah, you can set it up that you can go back and edit your responses.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll make sure. This is my first Google survey.
But only one time.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll edit for you.
So we'll go on to the next slide. I just want to highlight a little bit on the tool again.
Tracy, when are you sending that out?
So,
Or am I jumping ahead?
yeah, that's a, we'll get to that. Next slide. So the 8 performance standards that you will be rating the superintendent on are listed on the screen: leadership, district culture, policy and governance, communications, community relations, organizational management, instructional leadership, human resource management, values and ethics of leadership, and labor relations. So those are the 8 performance categories. And then the next slide, we'll talk about the overall rating scale. You do have this definition on your evaluation, so you can go back and kind of review the different categories when you choose the rating. Next slide, please. So just a couple of helpful tips. We always encourage people to have no surprises on the evaluation. So you always want to provide regular feedback throughout the year. And so that when you do come to the evaluation time, there are no surprises on the evaluation. You want to be clearly define your expectations, and then also give the employee the opportunity for them to tell you what they need for them to be successful as well. Use specific examples when possible. So when you are doing those comments, if you've got a specific example to support your rating, please use that. And put time and effort into this evaluation. It doesn't take 10 minutes. It actually takes a while. Jack, do you want to share how long it takes you to, now granted, he's a wordsmither, so he might review for days and days, but you know, it takes a while. So it's certainly not something that you can do in 10 minutes for sure. Next, 6 minutes or 6 days? 6 days.
Hey, Tracy?
So, yes.
Could you give an example about that no surprises? I think I totally understand what you're meaning, but maybe just so it doesn't discourage the trustees from, you know, saying something that they think maybe some suggested improvement versus they might think that's a surprise and they're not supposed to say it, or just wondering if you have an example.
If you do have specific questions regarding the evaluation, I definitely would recommend that you talk with Lance. But, you know, what we try to encourage is that, and I doubt there are, but if there were some performance issues with the superintendent, they wouldn't be hearing it the first time through the evaluation. And that you are having ongoing communications with an individual if they do have concerns. But again, Amy, I would encourage you to talk with Lance. That's one of my last slides, to talk about if you have any questions. But Lance could probably answer that question if you've got a specific issue you'd like to chat with him about. Timeline. Sorry?
Amy, does that help?
Yeah, thanks.
So the timeline, tonight we're just reviewing the process. Then on January 26th, Micah will be presenting his self-reflection and feedback document, and then you will discuss that at the close of the meeting during executive session. Then on January 27th, the day after that, I will go ahead and send out the evaluation link to all of you, and we would like you to complete the survey by February 5th. And then at the February 9th meeting, we will, at the conclusion of that, I will provide the summary of the evaluation, and then you will go into executive session and complete the evaluation process for Micah. Jack?
You know, going back to Amy's question about no surprises, always provide regular feedback.
I don't know how often all the trustees talk to Micah or Lance for that matter. And if somebody doesn't do it very frequently and they have something festering under their skin, I guess my suggestion would be, before you fill out the evaluation, talk to some combination of Lance or Micah about what's festering before you put it in the evaluation. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't put it in the evaluation, but make sure you talk to them before you do that. Just so that they have some kind of a heads up, even if you haven't had regular conversations or complaint sessions or whatever you want to call it, that if something's bothering you that much, talk to them first, but that shouldn't prevent you from putting it in the evaluation if you still think it's necessary after you've had the conversation with them. I guess that would be my response for no surprises.
In addition to this, Mike and I have talked a lot about the evaluation process and how it's been traditionally done in the past. And Micah brought up the point that it really, there's a long time that goes before the evaluation, and there's not really a formal process in terms of the board providing your expectations of the upcoming year. So we have developed a procedure. We're going to be bringing it to the governance committee on Friday to have them initially review the process. But what we're anticipating is that when you have your summer board retreat, you are also going to talk about the goals that you want to set up for the district, but also for the superintendent as well. And so that procedure that we have and that model form should help you walk through that process, because I think it's important. And this is a very odd time to have an evaluation. You know, it's half the year is still there, but you have to do that for law. And so I think having another communication at the summer session is very important and will help the overall direction of the district and Micah. So Amy, that should also help with those communications as well. So it's not just once a year. Next slide, please. So who do you contact if you have questions? If you have questions regarding the content of the evaluation, that would not be me. That would be Lance, is who you'd want to talk to regarding any questions you have regarding content. If you have any problems with the document or you don't know how to open it or for some reason it doesn't work, I'm your IT go-to person for the document, but not for the content. So.
Really?
Yeah, I think. Although I deleted the whole evaluation today accidentally and had to redo it again, so I don't know, but. Anyway.
It's the IT part that I'm confused about.
Yeah. You know, just on this.
Thank you, Tracy, for keeping us on track.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Tracy? Will?
So for some of the newer trustees, you might get to a section where you just are clueless about what it's even talking about.
Right.
Would I call Lance and say, what should I put in there, you know?
Yes, I mean, to have the discussions, I think any of the senior board members can help you understand kind of what you're looking for in those sections. It's fairly clear. It not only outlines the strategy or the standard, but it also provides performance indicators as well. Mm-hmm. So it gives you a little bit of guidance of what that category is to cover. But again, use your senior board members to kind of help you through the process.
Any other questions?
I got a comment I'd like to make. Yeah. Just for the evaluation process, I was contacted by a employee of the school district in reference to, he's the, or was, since he just resigned, the girls soccer coach at Glacier. and he was very impressed with Micah coming up to the school at 11:30 at night, still in his tie, to greet the soccer team when they got back from Helena. And he was just commenting to me how impressed he was with Micah to have the dedication to come up and just greet them and tell them how proud he was of them.
Nice. Those are good things to put in the evaluation.
Yep.
Okay,
Great. I
Thank you,
think that's
Tracy.
all of my section, right?
that's it.
Yay.
Yay. All right, contracts. Greg, you're up.
So I think the only thing that we have is School Dude, which is a work order system. What we have right now is, comes up, I want to say it's School Point, which is kind of Facilities Point. It's a free software program which really does nothing for me or for the maintenance department, facility side. So I had an extensive conversation with Omar, who is the sales rep for School Dude, and I'm familiar with School Dude from my past life. We've explored it. We didn't use it. We used what was called Maintenance Connections, but it was a similar product. So there's multiple facets to this software program. We have an asset tracking ability. We have the capability to use a mobile app that all the custodians can use, the head custodians, lead custodians can use to take pictures, photographs, do any documentation. So basically what I'm looking for is something to take us out of the stone tablet age to bring us into something that we can track work orders. It actually creates a work order number. We can generate reports with it. If room 105 at Flathead High School has a univent problem that keeps going on and on and on, I can actually pull that out and say, when I go to a 5-year deferred maintenance project, I can pull that element out and say, well, this thing has 30 work orders. I need to look at this. I need to figure out what's going on here. The cost is pretty minimal from what I've done a lot of research. So what they do is they base it off of your enrollment numbers. That's where the number comes from. So the 2,800 is that would carry us through till June 30th, and then a annual renewal would be around 11,200, so it's less than $1,000 a month. And that tool is something that is invaluable to us. So we can dictate who is allowed to write a work order, to enter a work order. We can, we can write reports on it. Our new custodial equipment, we can monitor that and make sure that it's being, we have the service agreement on it, it's being pulled out, looked at. We have it actually has the ability to say, you're spending $7,000 a year on, I'm just rough numbers, $7,000 a year on room 42 to whatever it is. So there's that component. There's all kinds of little components you can add to it. This program's pretty big as far as what we can do for modules, and to get too convoluted, I get excited about it because I want to get out of the gate with it because I know what it can do. We just cleaned out the whole M&O facility today. I would show you pictures, but I'm not going to. And there's a component for like shop stock, how much you use, per stop. There's all kinds of stuff you can use with it. So it's something that it's a professional thing. It's very updated. It's not. They've actually went out, talked to a bunch of school districts that use it. What is it that you need? What is it that you want? And it's pretty comprehensive for what we would need. It's probably a little over the top, but I like a little over the top. It's going to give me that
little bit of meat that I can sink my teeth into and say, this is what we want. And we can control who puts in a work order, and, which is a good thing. Trust me, it's a good thing. You don't want everybody in the world putting in a work order. And we don't have to approve it. The answer is always yes. So we'll go look at it, and then if it's something that we don't need, then we'll figure it from there. But there's a record of everything. We can, and it lives forever. That document is live forever. So that's something that I want. Right now, what I have to do is Flathead High School, door. There's 17 work orders, or 1,000, it doesn't matter. I have to go through every door work order to find that one. I did figure out, though, that if we, it's got a timestamp on it, so then I look at the time now. So, 1,400 hours and 7 minutes and 52 seconds, I'll find that work order. This doesn't do that. It generates a work order number is what we need. And it's accountability for everybody and make sure everything's done. We put the resource down, how many hours we have it, how many hours it took to repair the problem, how much it cost to put in there. And with our inventory tracking, which comes with this, is invaluable to us. It'll put us into the next, step of being a maintenance and operations yard. So that's where we're at, right? And that tool right there is invaluable. I'll tell you guys the honest to God truth. At first, I kind of laughed at School Dude because I'm like, no, I've seen it. It was kind of campy for me. And then I saw it again, and I brought in a technical expert who happens to be married to me, and she walked me through the whole system and showed me it, and it is a phenomenal product, and it's well worth every dime.
Are there any questions for Greg?
I just have one. All right, is the office managers going to be able to put in the work orders?
If we allow you to. We can allow so here's the thing, we can add or delete anybody we want. Right now, when you add somebody to that, so if say you added somebody that was an employee 30 years ago, but you can't get rid of them. They're in that system, so they could technically log onto the system. They're still there and send a work order in. There's no accountability. You can't, but yes, so our vision is that we'd have the admin and the head custodian or the lead custodian, who is the custodian of the building, should know everything that goes on, right? The custodian should know everything that goes on within this building, period, hands down. In the event that custodian is not available, there will be an admin available to put that work order in. But our point of contact as a maintenance and operations side should be the custodian. We should be able to walk up to Bob, Judd, whoever, and say, X, Y, and Z, we're here for room 107. You said, the ceiling tile needs to be replaced. That's accountability. That custodian needs to know we're there. That's the big thing. So limiting the amount of people that can actually submit a work order is huge, because you get duplicate work orders, and I've had principals say, well, you denied my work order. I'm like, yeah, because it came in 4 seconds later after your first one did. So that's, yes.
Okay.
Yes, so long answer, yes.
Okay. All right.
Any other questions?
But we control that. So we control that. We get to throttle that down to what we want, what we allow.
Who has access?
Like Micah? No. Beth? Yes.
Other questions for Greg?
I guess IT vetted, does it speak well with other programs?
It's a standalone program, so what we have right now is the software program that we have with what's hosting our website right now, which is, it's great, I guess. It's fine. It's just, it literally serves no purpose for me other than to, when you call in a work order, I have to go in there, approve it, assign it, print it, and then wait for somebody to close it, but there's no application for how many hours did you put on it, what's the amount of, what was the cost, what was the material that you put into it, the whole 9 yards, and there's no tracking ability. I can run a report, but the report does me no good because I don't know what the report does.
Hey, Mark, Mike has said that we used to have this program in the
Yes.
district.
So evidently
We had it for many years, and then when we got School Point, which was our website-based product, they had a facility point. It's just not very robust.
So I'll tell you this from a standpoint of if you have less than 20, 25 sites, this is the ideal thing because it's not convoluted. It's very cut and dried. It's very fluid. Everything. I mean, we asked every question we could. I had my maintenance guys there. I had, again, my technical, gal that I know. We asked a bunch of questions. What it could do for us, and the components that we had. Gwen and I talked about the asset management piece with the new custodial equipment, how we're going to track that, the surplus, stuff like that. We can track all that stuff. I mean, we could track square footage, carpet, and they have the ability to populate our stuff now because they have it. So we don't have to hire, they don't have to come in at an added cost and go through every classroom. So it's already there.
Is there a trustee who'd be willing to make a motion to approve this contract?
I'll make a motion. I just want to make a comment, before we do, having been a former, office manager, I've used School Dude, and they wanted our opinion of it. We loved it.
Yeah,
It was a great process.
And to be honest with you, and like I said before, the first time I actually saw it, which was about 10 years ago, I kind of chuckled at it because we had some other program. But as I looked at it and got familiar with it, it's a very, very nice tool. It is very clean. It's very, it's something that would benefit us greatly.
Second. I would.
Kim made the motion and Jack seconded. Yes. Further discussion? I would say Greg is trying to get tools for his crew, the right tools for the job, quality tools, and we want to give you those quality tools too, Greg. So
thank you.
Have at it.
Appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Good. Amy?
Aye.
Rebecca?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Thanks, Greg. Early release. Micah, you're up next.
Yeah, so back in November, the board approved, early release on Wednesday for staff. Students are released early, staff remain, and we said that we would bring this back in front of the board in January, along with some, information and feedback, both from staff and from parents. And so, what I'm gonna say first is what the recommendation is, and then I'm gonna show you the why in the data. So the recommendation would be to continue with early release as presented, and they would remain on Wednesdays. They would start January 27th. We're good through January 20th, ending May 26th. So that's kind of that 2 weeks before school is out officially. We have graduation at the high school level. We have lots of things going on. We're gonna be trying to figure out how do we get our Chromebooks and curriculum materials back. I mean, there's just gonna be too much going on to throw in some more of those. And that every third Wednesday would be dedicated to professional development directed by the building administration. And so with that, I want to show you the feedback that we received. That's in the PowerPoint. Let's go right to the next slide. So we sent this survey out to parents. We had 2,268 responses, which I thought was pretty good. And you can see kind of the breakdown. About 44% of them were from elementary, 27% from middle school, and 53% from the high school. So those were pretty good numbers for us to have a good representation. And one of the questions I asked was, did this cause an inconvenience for you? I think we addressed this back in November, that we knew that there was some potential downside to this. 73% said that there was no inconvenience for their family. 27% said that there was. So when you kind of do the math on this, you have a pretty large group of people in terms of respondents, about 400 or so, that said that there was some inconvenience with the early releases. And the next question we asked is, well, what were the inconveniences? And no surprise, transportation, childcare, having to take time off of work, other, and then no inconvenience. And people could pick more than one. So this isn't like a true representation. I can only pick one. So it could have been transportation and childcare, or having to take off work and transportation, or something like that. So, you know, and that was important to me to know and understand from our parents what the impacts were. So the other question I asked was if they had a preference for which day of the week. And you can see that parents, about 40% of them would like to see Fridays. 38% said they had no preference, and 18% said that they would prefer to keep it on Wednesdays, and there was a smattering of Tuesdays and Thursdays in there as well. When I went through the comments and was trying to get a little deeper dive into why Friday, a lot of parents see that as kind of a kickstart to their weekend, or, you know, just from a work standpoint, it made sense to put it at the end of the week. But you'll recall that my recommendation is to keep it on Wednesdays, and I'll get into that in just a minute. But then ask the question, would you continue to support the district implementing the early releases? And, you know, almost 79% of our parents said that they would continue to support that, and they see the value in it. We saw that in the comments, and, you know, they saw the value in it from the perspective of the staff, but they also saw the value in it from the perspective of being a parent. Like, there was something tangible about this time. It was more time with their kids. It was time to do homework. It was time to do a lot of different things. And so can you go back to the first slide, Callie? Sorry, one more now. So 27% said it caused an inconvenience. But then you go back to the other slide, and 21% said that they didn't support it. So even though there was some inconvenience, it didn't mean that they necessarily didn't support it. They're just answering the question. Yeah, this was hard for us. Okay. So there were some not so positive comments and some suggestions. All of them, you know, in some cases, you know, it was COVID is overblown. You guys are making too big of a deal out of this. My kid shouldn't be wearing a mask. You know, some of that kind of conversation. And there were some pretty mean comments in there as well. We didn't include those in this. You know, and comments about the early release in particular. You know, some people think that there's no benefit to it. There's a loss of educational time. There's, you know, we should be keeping our kids in schools. We're paying the taxes, and you need to do this, this, and this. And so, you know, but then the other part of that was just the hardship, you know, with daycare, or, you know, one comment in particular from a mom who was a nurse. You know, I can't leave my shift in the middle of, you know, I can't leave in the middle of my shift to come pick up my kids. I didn't sign up for transportation at the beginning of the year. You know, there's some things that are inherently hard on this. And there were some suggestions too, you know, could we have after-school programs? Could we change the day? Can we only have it once a month? Can it be a full day? Can we go to a 4-day week? There were lots of those kind of comments in there, but, and then the positive side of this too. You know, lots of, you know, just thank you, appreciation. Thanks for keeping the schools open. You know, we recognize you're dedicated to our kids, and we want to support the staff. And even though it's hard on us, we recognize that, and we're willing to see it continue. So then we surveyed the staff. I got 314 responses from our staff on the early releases, and didn't ask them all the same questions, but again, kind of proportionally, really similar proportions in terms of grade levels that they're teaching at. We asked them what their home-based school was, so we just kind of had an idea, representation of, you know, as we try and disaggregate the data a little bit, you know, if someone wasn't supporting it, were they at the elementary level, if they, you know, or was it high school or middle school level, just trying to get a better sense of that. And the responses was overwhelmingly positive, so there wasn't a whole lot of having to dig down into it too far. We asked them what kind of things they were doing, and again, they could be doing one or all of these things. You know, so they were creating videos, they were cleaning, they're creating lesson plans, they're working with their colleagues, they're meeting with parents, they're emailing, they're working on IEPs, they're doing and continuing to be engaged in work related to supporting our students, and that was really good. And there were some very positive comments from parents about, you know, my kid was able to go in and work with their teacher, or I was able to have a meeting with my child's principal and their teacher, or things like that. So there was a lot of benefit to it, but staff was pretty busy during using that time. So I asked, you know, just from a professional capacity, was the time valuable for you? 97% said yes. So there were a few who said, you know, I get my job done in the time that I'm allocated. It wasn't, you know, there wasn't any more to it. And that could really depend on the position of the teacher and what they're doing. And you know, if you're an elementary teacher and you think about all of the learning centers that they have and having to go in and clean every single item and doing, you know, all these different things, some of that time is really consumed in that. We asked what their level of concern for lost instructional time as a result of the early releases. And 1 was a low level of concern, so no concerns. 5 was a high level of concern. And when I go in and look at those, and I did collect email addresses on these so I could go in and see individual responses, there was a lot of concern coming especially out of special education, you know, just for that lost instructional time. And, you know, over time it adds up. And so you're really trying to weigh the benefit of, you know, perhaps some lost instructional time versus the ability to continue to perform at an optimal level for the teacher. And we asked them if they had a preference for which day of the week. And 41% of our staff said Wednesday, 33% said no preference, and 20% said Friday. And we talked about this, you know, in terms of, you know, are we listening to what our parents want as a majority, or are we listening to our staff as a majority? But there's another compounding factor in all of this, and that is the early releases across the valley. Everybody else is on Wednesday. If KPS goes to Friday, now parents are dealing, if they have kids in 2 different school systems, say Kyla and Flathead High School, now I've got a Wednesday and Friday that I'm trying to figure out. And so we thought it was best to continue to maintain the Wednesday to be consistent with what's going on across the valley. And do you feel the early release provided the time needed to manage your workload? There were some who said no, and primarily when they said no, they also commented, I need more time. So, but, you know, 94%, you know, said that, you know, that extra 2 hours in a week was truly beneficial. And if the district were to continue the early release for the second half of the year, would you be open to 1 day a month being dedicated for professional development time, grade level time, systems of support, department leader time, whatever that may be from a building standpoint? And we heard a little bit of that from our administrators that, you know, one of the things we did this year when we moved those early releases to the beginning of the year is they lost that professional development time moving forward. In semester 2, 2 of the Wednesdays were already dedicated to professional development. So they were already on the books, so to speak. And those were the 3rd Wednesday of, I want to say February and May. And so we were just going to continue to have the 3rd Wednesday of each month be a professional development time. So it could be building-wide. Brent could lead his whole building in a professional development time, or they could divide it up by grade level teams, or they could do department meetings, or however they want to do that, but just that professional time for them as well. Is that a repeat? Oh, and then, okay, yeah. Would you support the district implementing the early release? And 95% said yes. So if we were just doing true majority rules, and trust me, I've been voted down 1-4 many times. You know, in summary, you know, our parents are saying yes, and our staff is saying yes. And so that's the reason for my recommendation to continue to move it forward. One of the things that we're working on, and I've talked with Annie at Transportation, I did mention that there were some maybe financial implications associated with this. Currently, we have an after-school program through City Parks and Rec at Elrod, and we're talking with them about expanding that to Russell. So 3 of our elementary schools could get to Elrod, 3 could get to Russell. We'd have to do some transporting of students to get them to those places, but I think it's important that we're also responsive to our parents that this has created a hardship for, and trying to find ways to support them in that. By all means, the intent of this is not to create more hardship, but to provide opportunities. So we're working on that as well, to continue to look at that.
Any questions for Micah? Ursula?
So the only, if we approve this, the only change is that there will be like 3 more professional development Wednesdays.
Correct.
Everything else will stay the same.
Correct.
Okay. I thought there was something about like students not having the time that needed to be addressed. Was there something there that got?
From a instructional minute standpoint?
Yeah, like a proficiency instructional minutes thing?
Yeah, and we're okay there.
We're okay there?
Yep.
Okay, great.
Will, did you have a question?
Yeah, you were mentioning, maybe implementing some kind of an after-school solution for, those folks that would benefit from that. And you mentioned the elementary schools. What about the middle school?
Something we can explore as well.
It's not quite as easy as
No, and we have a lot of activities at the middle school level as well, that kids participate in different things, but.
Yeah, you know, I agree, Will. I've noticed that the kids, middle school used to go over to the summit a lot of times after school or on early releases, and that's not an option this year. So I guess I would like the same thing, take a look at middle school.
Thank you. Rebecca, Amy, you have any questions?
No,
Amy, why don't you go
I had
first?
a question about the, Micah saying that the parent said that she didn't sign up for transportation. And I just wondered, is that an issue? If they didn't sign up for transportation, then they can't take the bus? And just Micah's thoughts on that.
You know, I would have to check with Annie. We do have some routes that are full, but we also have room on most of our routes available. And so I think if that was an issue, we would try and work with that parent to make sure that they could still get signed up for bus transportation.
Okay. Rebecca, do you have a question?
No, thank you for asking. Great presentation.
Any other questions, or I would entertain a motion to approve this recommendation? Scott?
I move that we approve the continuation of the early releases on Wednesdays for the remainder, or as presented.
Thank you.
Second.
Diane seconds it. Further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Amy?
Aye.
Rebecca?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you for pulling that all together, Micah.
Absolutely.
Facilities planning.
Does that mean? Just kidding. Just kidding. Yeah, you can go ahead and fill that out. Who, me? Just pulling it up on my computer as well. I guess, you know, one of the challenges that school districts have is as facilities, and there's always kind of a process to, you know, certainly building new schools, but we also have some other challenges that we're facing, and one of those is we currently lease or are loaned the bus barn behind Legends, and that's the cities. And a few years ago, they said, hey, you know, we're looking at expanding, we're getting bigger, we need more room, we need you guys to vacate here in the next few years. And so that started a process, and currently we're holding money in transportation to build the facility. But there's more to it from a district perspective, and would like to put together a steering committee to look at that. And part of that, when I say there's more to it, we have multiple properties across the district. We own a building and lot off of Birch Grove Road, just south of the airport, that used to be a school and was, I guess, ceded to the high school district, and it's currently used as a community center. We have our transportation and operations, or our facilities and operations building off of Meridian Court. We also have what some people call the old Edgerton building or laser building that houses our Heart Locker, transportation office, and print shop. So we have a lot of different facilities out there, and then we also were approached in the fall about potentially selling the old laser building, as well as our central office building. And so there's a lot of moving parts, and there needs to be, at least at some point, an opportunity to kind of steer us in the right direction. And I'd like to have a steering committee of a small group. We've had conversations with architect and engineer. They've been getting feedback from us on, you know, what would this new transportation building look like? Is there potential to consolidate some of our facilities and make it more of a central location, and having all of those things under one roof, so to speak? And so I think there's just a greater conversation as we move forward, and would like to pursue that. We have, you know, when it comes to buildings and, you know, breaking, you know, from the time that you get from concept to breaking ground to being completed, it might take a couple of years, but that time goes by really fast, and would like to pursue that.
So is there anyone interested on serving on that steering committee? I'm not sure what the time commitment is.
Well, the first meeting's Thursday.
There you are.
At 1 o'clock.
I mean, I'm always raising my hand for these things. I'm curious, so I'll raise my hand.
Yeah, and I don't think it's going to be a huge commitment, and really what the purpose of the steering committee is to do is to kind of get a little bit of a vision and bring it back to the board and say, look, you know, we have some property that we own. We own a significant chunk next door to Rankin. We also own a property up off of Rose Crossing. Is that a potential site, or do we need to look at buying a different site for this? And so, you know, really everything will always come back to the full board, but working with a smaller group. And so you would have Gwen, myself, Greg, from the central office. You'd have architect, engineer, and then would like to get some board members involved in that discussion as well.
I would be interested too.
Is that Amy?
Yes.
Great.
It doesn't have to be the first meeting, but just sitting out there, would like the district has a realtor they work with too, right?
Yes.
To get like an idea of some of those values, and then also being that the central office is the library as well. Does the library board, like, just to make sure that they know that we're starting these discussions, I guess, is kind of something I would say.
Yeah, and that's probably a more complicated part of this process.
Yeah.
I mean, there's certainly some pieces to that. You know, with the realtor who approached us initially that said, hey, I have some investors that are looking at this, you know, they're talking like, you know, we don't have to make any moves right now. We can rent it back to you. We can, you know, do different things. So, and there is a lease agreement with the library. You know, we have to give at least 6 months notice if we're going to terminate it. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts to this whole thing.
Okay. We'll go,
But yeah, we would not do anything without engaging the county library.
All right.
As Sue likes
So-
to say, my husband will kill me if I volunteer for one more thing. But would there be an opportunity to sit in on these meetings, even if one was not actually a member of this committee, or would they be closed?
But they would be open. Yeah.
All right, Will?
Thanks, Micah.
I just am wondering, because I don't understand these things, but when you say that we own property on a certain spot, I guess I always thought that the schools were part of the county, and so the county owns that. But a school district is its own entity, and it can own property. And does then that, the next up is the state? Or the school OPI or something?
No.
Or just-
Correct me if I'm wrong, Gwen, but the, yep.
And like, does anybody oversee it? Is that the question, or?
I was just in my mind, I was thinking it was state owned or county owned.
Mhm.
So, I was just intrigued by the fact that we talked about it as school district owning it.
Yeah, and technically, the taxpayers own it, and they're public buildings. But yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
The state does own school land, and they were parcels of land that were set aside for schools way back, beginning of, Montana. And then if schools weren't built on them, then they're leased for a variety of things, and that revenue is generated, goes to the state, so you might have heard that reference. And that there's, that's part of the tax structure. But school districts also, once you build a school on it, then it does belong to the school district. And then as schools closed over the last 100 years, they would then become part of the school district next to them. That's what happened at Birch Grove. There was a school there, and eventually there were no students, and so it closed, and Kalispell was bordering it, so then that land, reverted to Kalispell. The other thing is that oftentimes families would give a parcel of land that a school district could be built on, and then when they no longer needed it, oftentimes in the language, it would say that the land would revert back to the original family. So, 100 years later, you're trying to find the descendants of these people that donated the land, and then there's a legal process to get it back. So there's all kinds of different things going on up there with land that school district owns at different times.
Is it the school trust land? Is that what they call them?
Yeah, that's the ones that were, a certain number of acres were set aside in every so many parcels that schools could be built on. But if it didn't happen, they might lease it to ranchers, they might lease it to someone who would log it, they might lease, depending on what the utilization for the land might be.
Commonly
So
called
that's kind of
section
the school
36.
trust. What's that, Jeff?
Commonly called section 36.
Yeah. Yeah, it was section 36 in, what's the next larger land description, but it all.
It was like every 36 sections.
Yeah.
It'll be the southeast corner of every township and range.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
So anything else on the steering committee? So it looks like there's some good interest, and it'll be fascinating conversations.
Yes. Yes, it will.
So we have a consent agenda for the elementary only, fundraising request. Does anyone want to make would any trustee from the elementary district want to make a motion to pass the consent agenda?
Make the motion.
Thank you, Kim.
I'll second it.
Ursula will second it. Elementary trustees, further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Rebecca?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Consent agenda district-wide. Has everyone had time to review that, and is there any questions? Would anyone care to make a motion?
Move we approve the consent agenda.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, Will. Further conversation? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Rebecca, how do you vote?
Aye.
Amy?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Informational items and reports. Rebecca, you want to start us off?
Just to add on to Lance's comment about what a professional, wonderful place Hedges was and how great it was to visit and see some of the new construction there.
Thank you, that's very quick. Anything else? Amy?
I just want to wish everyone a Happy New Year, and it seems like we're off to a great start, and I continue to be impressed and appreciate everybody's efforts.
Okay. Ursula?
I have nothing to report.
Thank you. Will?
I also enjoyed the Hedges tour.
Thank you.
I have nothing.
Nothing for Mark. Kim?
I have nothing.
Scott?
I have nothing.
Sue?
I just wanted to give an update on some of the things happening in the legislature right now. Things are happening very quickly, and I decided that I would send out that email just so I didn't have to spend a lot of time telling you what's going on. But MTSBA puts out a weekly update on everything that's going on in the legislature, and we get pretty much daily updates from them. Today was an extremely busy day because House Bill 102 is being brought to the floor tomorrow, and House Bill 102 is the restructuring of gun laws, and it affects schools and universities. And they have been successful in putting some amendments in there to take the school buildings out of that. There's an exemption from those gun laws, so, guns still won't be allowed in the buildings. The reason it was a busy topic today is because they're trying to add one more amendment that refer to school grounds, such as a football field, a soccer field. In fact, I talked with both Frank Garner and Brian Putnam, who were both here at our meet and greet the other day. And they are very supportive of new language for that. However, you can imagine this creates a lot of discussion in the legislature. So if they push too hard, they're afraid of repercussions. So we're crossing our fingers that tomorrow somebody will be willing to carry this new amendment to House Bill 102. If not, we'll wait till it goes to the Senate, and then we'll see what they present there. But it's kind of exciting. MTSBA, which usually lobbies pretty heavily, it's a little different this year because not everything is in person. And so they have asked for help. I don't know if anybody else got the notice from MTSBA asking for, and I hate this term, the army of advocates. But if anybody is interested in being an advocate for MTSBA's legislative platform, which includes all of us, they would be very interested in it. If you are interested in that, please let me know, and I can send you the link how to get registered for it. It's just making some phone calls, and I'll tell you what, any of these people who were here for our meet and greet, very open to having a discussion. Yeah, every single one of them, you could feel comfortable just making a short phone call. Be aware that if you call them about one bill, they may ask your opinion on something else. I am happy to share, like this is the report I got yesterday on all the bills. It tells you which bills MTSBA is supporting, which one they're watching. I mean, there's a lot of these You gotta read them to know if you really support them or not. But this is very helpful, and I'm glad to share this with you. I also have a list of our Region 1 legislators, their emails, and their phone numbers. If anybody wants to come and take a picture of this, to take it with you, that's okay. It's also available on the legislature's website. But these are just kind of nice to have them, just our region. But yeah, it's an exciting time. MTSBA feels much better than they did in November about what's happening for schools, which makes me feel much better. I think there's people who want to hear from us, and I think that's really important. I know Ursula and Dorothy Drury, who else was on that call? Oh, and Danielle Kaufman called in. You missed it, Mark. Called in for that group that is advocating for public education from Great Falls, started in Great Falls. But I think they're a very dynamic group that I also contacted them about being this army of advocates. So hopefully we'll hear from them. But let me know if you want to get involved. It's really an intriguing process, and I did this years ago, and so it's kind of interesting to be involved with it again in a whole different format. You know, you can still provide your comments. It's all by written or Zoom right now. I don't think I would go to the session, but Zoom into the legislature. But it's pretty interesting. And these are all the bills. These are just the education bills. You know, it's 10 pages.
Thank you, Sue, for staying on top of that and keeping us posted.
Yeah. Kind of a little frustrating, but.
Jack?
Nothing.
And I have nothing either. Micah?
Well, I would echo what you said, Lance, to Sue, and just thank you for your diligence. And I've been reading and following, and I'm part of a administrative group that's also advocating, and it's a lot to keep up on, and it's moving really fast, and that advocacy is really important for our school. So any chance you get, even if it's just a quick email like, please vote no on this, please vote yes, those go a long way. So really appreciate that. The other thing, and we're gonna have, it'll be a bigger discussion item as part of our work session next meeting, is a strategic plan for the district. Have been in conversation with Deborah Silk and Lance Melton from Montana School Boards Association. This is a service that they provide, and, you know, looking at just, you know, ranges, MTSBA, it's about $3,500 to have them help facilitate this process. You could spend upwards of $20,000 to $25,000 to have other groups. There's lots of people that do this type of work. They're very experienced, very knowledgeable about Montana laws, school funding, all those kind of things, and so those fit into that broader discussion. But it is a process. Deborah was saying that she worked with Missoula last year. They had a core group of 80 people. And, you know, so this is a process, but it's really vital to the operations of the district to hear from our community the direction that they would like to see, to have our board involved in that, our staff, our administrators, and really setting that vision for, you know, 5 years down the road and even projecting further. You know, when we're all gone 100 years from now, what legacy will we have left Kalispell Public Schools? So more information to come with that, and Lance and Deborah, one or both, will be joining us via Zoom or WebEx. Jason and I are talking about that for our next session. And the other thing, learned today in kindergarten that today was the 80th day of school. So we've made it almost halfway through the year. So kudos to everybody that we've made it that far. So.
Callie?
Got the opportunity this year, I'm spending full days in a classroom. I'm not doing the traditional walkabout, where you're here, you know, in a classroom for 20 minutes or so. I really tried to zero in on full days in a classroom. Last week I had the opportunity to spend a full day with first graders. And it's giving me the opportunity to take a look from the perspective of, you know, how's our reading, how's our math program, how's it actually happening at the student level, and our zoo phonics. I mean, it's one thing to order these things, it's one thing to talk about it with administrators and instructional coaches, but it's a whole different thing when you're able to sit there with students and interact with the curriculum and the students. So I have just thoroughly loved it, but I've also gotten a lot of important information back. And I'm not evaluating the teacher, and I make that real clear, and their support. And I work, I mean, I'm in there cleaning off paintbrushes and running groups, and I mean, I'm not just sitting there as a casual observer, and it's been quite valuable. My only regret is that I didn't do that years ago. It's been quite valuable.
Excellent. Thank you for doing that, for taking the time to do that. Bill?
We are in the 10th to 14th day after New Year's. Those are always interesting days for me when you look at data and what happens in the community. You know, the county continues to be fairly low in comparison to where we were at one point. Our schools are continuing to look good. We do have a few cases coming out of the break, most of which kids became sick during the break, so they haven't been in school, and now they've tested positive. There are a couple cases where they were in school a couple days, so we do have a few quarantines, but all in all, looking pretty good. Those numbers will be updated once again on our website. I'll do all that tomorrow, and then they'll get posted by Thursday morning. So looking good, very pleased with what's going on. I've been in the schools this week. Everybody's excited to be back, and you know, after you get through those holidays, especially Christmas and New Year's, it's kind of that downhill slide, you know, and you can feel that, which everybody is feeling good about. Winter activities have started, you know, pretty interesting, I guess, to give a word to it. We'll see kind of what happens with those all being indoors and how that works. But, you know, kids are, as our Flathead High School student body president said, they're excited to be a part of it. And certainly I know there's a lot of places that aren't, and we're pretty fortunate here that we're in support of that and letting our kids do that. So
that's it. Any questions for Bill? Bill, what are your thoughts on the governor's talking about the mask mandate going away in weeks rather than months?
Well, we'll kind of, I guess, see what that timeline ends up being for them. But, you know, I was actually, with all of the things that I heard prior to him getting into office, was very pleased with how he presented himself and what he said. And I don't feel like I feel like he's doing what really any governor in that seat would do. He has some things that have to be done first, which are vaccinations and our schools and businesses and things that are proactive in trying to do good stewardship on the mass need to be protected. And, you know, so it's, and I think through the process and where we are at as a state and a nation, people can kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel, you know, and it does take a process to get there. And, you know, I'm at this point, okay with the direction he's going and hopefully where it will lead us.
Any feedback from staff about being bumped from 1B to 1C?
You know, I don't think not in a concerning manner. I know a lot of us would wish we could get it sooner than later. I'm kind of on on the side of the governor as far as, I think there are two groups that need it before we do, which are, you know, the 70 and older, plus the ones with compromised, health conditions. You know, I have parents that are pretty elderly and they don't have it yet, and I certainly don't need to be in the line before them. You know, we are in a situation where we're around kids a lot, so we certainly need it, but not anything that I don't think is tipping people over, so to speak.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? Gwen, do you have a report?
No, I'm down over here. You'll hear from me in the next few.
Sure we will. Sure we will. And we have a list of upcoming meetings. Look a little dated.
No, those are the minutes.
Those are the minutes. Those are the minutes.
Jack, go ahead and explain it. What's that?
Upcoming minutes. Gotta scroll down farther.
No, it's, there you go.
It's right here.
Oh, okay.
Jack emailed me today to tell me that all the upcoming meetings I posted were for December.
Yeah.
Was I just trying to see who was reading? And then he emailed back and said, never mind. I see now.
Okay. So lots of places to be involved, so. Thank you all. Will?
So, is there a process for having these show up in the daily interlake? Because I noticed that tonight's meeting wasn't there and some of the upcoming meetings.
So I send them an email at the beginning of every month with the whole month's meetings. And then if a meeting's canceled, I have to email them. And, I mean, we notify them, and sometimes things get missed, sometimes they misprint a time or whatever, but I email them everything at the beginning of the month.
Mm.
Yep.
I move we adjourn.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Adjourned.
Aye.
Good work, team.